Maybe a couple people. I mean, I am sure there's loads of things that came to mind. It's interesting what comes to mind when we think of wisdom. But I think we need to throw out our safe images of wisdom. Wisdom is not tidy or safe. It is strong. It is insightful. It is creative. It is upsetting in the sense it can go against the norm. Okay, I want to get you talking for a minute. This is one half, this is another half. Just want you to turn to the person beside you. This half. If wisdom were to be a colour, what colour would it be? Just to the person beside you. I'm pushing you, I'm getting you to think differently. If wisdom was to be a sound, what sound would it be? If wisdom was a colour, in my imagination, it would be ruby red. It would have real depth to it. It's not an ordinary colour, it's a colour with loads of depth. Then I was thinking, if wisdom was a sound, what sound would it be? And this is the track. Oh, hold on, don't play it yet. This track is a wee bit retro. It was out maybe about 6 years ago. I'm thinking you might know it. If you don't, you've got no musical credibility at all. No, I'm only joking, because of all that's a great thing about music, isn't it? We all like different genres and different types. But when I was thinking about wisdom, this is the track that came to mind, and I'll explain it. Drum beat. Wisdom is steady and strong. It's not tidy or safe. It is strong. It is insightful. It is creative. It is upsetting. Wisdom is not education. Wisdom is not about accumulating experience. Wisdom is perceptive, deeply, deeply spiritual. And on the surface, it's countercultural, but actually it's deeply timely. And the reason that wisdom is this is because wisdom begins with God. This weekend, we are going to take time. We're going to take time to sit in front of our King and listen. We're going to take time to open up his book and listen, and throughout it all, explore this theme of wisdom. Over the weekend, I've got 3 images. The starting, that's tonight. The starting of the track. Wisdom begins with God. Then tomorrow night, we'll look at the now. What does wisdom look like right now in the time that we live in? What do we need for today? And then on Sunday, we'll look down the track, look down to the future. What does wisdom mean in the future? We seek wisdom because we seek a God that is wise. We live incredibly practical lives, and we want to work out our faith every day. We want to do that with grace and love, and that will only happen if we're people who are wise. We need wisdom. I need wisdom for the small areas of my life and the big ones. How will you make strong decisions that impact the kind of person that you are if you don't have wisdom? How will you trust yourself to make strong decisions about your job or study, about friendships or relationships if you're not growing wisdom? How will you be the kind of friend that you long to be if you don't have wisdom? I say again, wisdom isn't dull. It carries depth, it is strong, it is insightful, it is creative, it enjoys life. My heart's cry for each of you is that you are wise men and women of God. And wisdom doesn't need to wait for something until you're 50 or 70 to possess. There's a great quote, and it says, wisdom goes not always by years. Some of the wisest people in this room tonight are some of the youngest. My prayer for you right now is that you are wise. Echoed in words of Proverbs 2, it says, let your ears listen to wisdom. Apply your heart to understanding. Call out for the ability to be wise. Cry out for understanding. Look for it as you would look for silver. Search for it as if you would search for hidden treasure. Then you will understand how to respect for the Lord. You'll find out how to know God. God gives wisdom. Knowledge and understanding come from his mouth. Wisdom starts with seeing God, recognizing who we are in the light of him and the grandeur of him. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. We see wisdom differently the more that we hang out with God, because hanging out with someone changes you. Let me introduce you to a new addition to my house. This is Molly. Molly is a cabochon. She is half Cavalier, half Bichon Frise. Really, Molly is just a ball of fluff. She is super extroverted. She is friendly, fab wee temperament. She loves people, and she loves to include people. If you came to my house and you threw a toy, Molly would be all excited and she would run to get that toy, and then she would drop it at a different person's foot. And then they would throw the toy, and then she would go and get it, and she'd drop it at a different person's foot. She works her way around the room, including everybody. I didn't teach her that. That was not my party trick. But Molly just loves everyone to take a part. My friends range from being total dog lovers to those who are totally nervous around dogs. And if you're nervous around dogs, it doesn't matter whether the dog is big or little, you're just nervous around dogs. And what I've noticed over the last 6 months is that my friends love Molly. They'll play with her when they're around. When I need help, they pitch in with walking her or feeding her. And when she had to go for surgery over the summer, they were all super concerned, and we texts were flying all over the show. And even my mum, who keeps telling me, Helen, I don't really like dogs, but I love Molly. So why am I telling you about my dog? Well, sometimes it takes hanging out with someone to care. When we take time with someone, it makes a difference. Molly isn't just a cute picture. She will shower you with affection, greet you as if you're the most important person in the world. And Molly is just a dog. You want wisdom? You start with seeing God, knowing him and growing in relationship with him. Hang out with him enough and he will rub off on you. His character, his compassion, his wisdom. We follow an utterly generous God who wants to share not just who he is, but what he is like. Wisdom is not just the accumulation of knowledge. It is walking through life, seeing God's truth, but interacting with his truth. Wisdom starts with seeing God, recognizing who we are in light of him and the grandeur of him. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. We have been opening up the Bible already tonight, listening to words of Proverbs. But now I want to look at how some people savoured this wisdom. And we read of amazing things that they did in their lives throughout the Old Testament, but they were wise, godly men because it began with him. They got an inside track on what God was like. No wonder they were wise men. I want to introduce you to two of them, two men. And so we're going to pick up their stories in two different places in the Bible. Two men at two different times, but actually the part I want to look at is exactly the same place. In both occasions, these men met wisdom. They saw wisdom, they experienced wisdom because they saw God. They met God, they experienced God. Two very different men. Remember that this wisdom is not about personalities, it is not about circumstances. Wisdom begins with him. Wisdom begins with him. One man, full of confidence, full of bravado, courage, asking, in fact, pleading for more. The other man passed himself, tired, worn out, literally spent, trying to hide. Both key men in our history of faith, both finding themselves in very different circumstances. One wanting more of God, the other not sure he could handle any more. Both leaders, very different, but leaders nonetheless because they carried influence. And read of their accounts in two very different places in the Old Testament. What I would love you to do is if you could take a wee moment and flick open to Exodus 33 and have that with one, open with your thumb, and then flick to 1 Kings 19, because we're going to flick back and forth through the two. So just take a wee moment, give yourself time to find them, and then we'll kick in. So tonight I'm talking about Moses. That's who we're going to read about in Exodus. And I'm talking about Elijah. That's who we're going to read about in 1 Kings 19. Moses, the man full of confidence, bravado, wanting more. Elijah, the man who was past himself, tired, worn out, literally spent trying to hide. And so in Exodus, in this account, we find Moses in a place where he's pleading with God, saying, God, don't send me from here if you're not going to go with me. So let's pick it up in Exodus 33, and we'll pick it up at verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you've not let me know whom you will send with me. You've said, I know you by name, and you have found favour with me. If you're pleased with me, teach me your ways, so I may know you and continue to find favour with you. Remember, this nation is your people. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us from here. How will anyone know you're pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you've asked, because I am pleased with you and I know your name. And then Moses said, now show me your glory. And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live. Then the Lord said, there's a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back, but my face may not be seen. I mean, what a conversation. What audacity. Moses is like, don't go from here unless you're with me, and God says, I'm with you. Moses again says, don't go from here unless you're with me. God says, I'm with you. And then Moses says, show me your glory. In Exodus, we have this man demanding more. Now, flick over to 1 Kings 19. This is a really different scene. Here we have a man who is literally trying to hide. If we pick it up at verse 3, so chapter 19, verse 3. Elijah was afraid, ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went on a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he fell down under the tree and fell asleep. I mean, these are two really different scenes, aren't they? Two leaders, two men of influence, but in completely different situations. Elijah is in a really bad way, and in the verses that follow, we read of how God sent an angel to take care of him, to feed him again, and then the Lord invited him on a journey to Horeb, the mountain of the Lord. Remember, two very different men, two very different situations, but actually the same mountain. It's Sinai and Horeb, they're the same mountain. They're called slightly different things in different parts of the Bible, but the same mountain. So Moses is going to see the glory of the Lord on Mount Sinai, and now Elijah is going to have a revelation of God on the same mountain, but a different time. Both had a revelation of God that deeply changed them. Both had a deeper insight into who God is and the very nature of him. So let's read these. So flick back to Exodus and chapter 34. And we're going to pick it up at verse 5. And if it's helpful and you just want to listen to me read so you can picture yourself there, then just set your Bible down and look up. Or if it's helpful for you to follow it as we read, do that. Exodus 34, verse 5. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with them and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children to their children for the sins of their father to the third and fourth generation. Moses bowed to the ground at once and worshipped. Flip back to 1 Kings 19. And we're going to pick it up at verse 11. Remember, same mountain, different time. The Lord said, verse 11, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face, went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then the voice spoke to him. Did you catch that? Compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, does not leave the guilty unpunished. A great and powerful wind, an earthquake, a fire, and then a gentle whisper. God was in the gentle whisper. As we begin a weekend exploring the nature of wisdom, we need to start with him. We need to stop and appreciate who God is, because wisdom begins with him. Wisdom is compassionate and gracious and slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, does not leave the guilty unpunished. Wisdom does not need to be forceful. It does not need to condemn or destroy, but wisdom is found in the gentle whisper. Wisdom begins with God. How can we not need this in our lives? We need this. Our communities need this. Moses and Elijah did amazing things in their lives, men of wisdom, because they were men who knew God. Very different men, incredibly different men, but they were wise men because it began with him. We seek wisdom because we seek a God that is wise. We live incredibly practical lives. We outwork our faith every day. We want it to have grace and love, but that will only happen if we are people that are wise. Wisdom begins with God. Do you know him? Do you see him? Do you see the size of your King? What he carries, what he brings? Job tells us, to God belongs wisdom and power, counsel and understanding are his. God understands the way to it, and he alone knows where it dwells, for he views the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens, where he established the force of the wind and measured out the waters, where he made a decree for the rain and a path for the thunderstorm. Then he looked at wisdom and appraised it. He confirmed and tested it, and he said to the human race, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. This weekend, I want to invite you to see the King, to stand on the mountain and let him pass, if you like, to see afresh his compassion, his grace, his patience, his love, his justice, and to experience his gentle whisper. for it all begins with him. We seek wisdom because we seek a God that is wise. And we live incredibly practical lives. We outwork our faith every day, and we want to do that with grace and love. And that will only happen if we're people who are wise. Let your ears listen to wisdom. You will understand how to respect the Lord. You will find out how to know him. The Lord gives wisdom. Knowledge and understanding come from his mouth. Wisdom begins with him. Let me pray. God, we cannot explore wisdom without stopping and recognizing who you are. And so, God, we simply sit and stand here tonight in wonder of you. God, help us know you more. Help us understand the depth of your wisdom, the strength of your wisdom. Help us know you. Amen.